We're doing what we're doing because it's the right thing to do, not because of any tax incentives from either the state of Michigan or from Scio Township. Now, our August 18th decision to stay and expand our business in Michigan did mean that we needed to properly address the concerns of our neighbors about our remediation program. We needed to work cooperatively to architect an effective remediation plan for the areas surrounding our plant, known as the core area. A plan which would serve the best interests of the community, our neighbors, the company, and the company's shareholders. We needed a plan that could be broadly and enthusiastically supported by the residents of Scio Township, the Township trustees, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, and Gelman Sciences. I personally wanted to begin the process of repairing what I felt were damaged relationships with the community, and I wanted to reestablish Gelman Sciences as a good corporate citizen. None of you can experience what I felt coming into this community 2.5 years ago and going out to the Chamber of Commerce, going out to functions in the community, and when I announced myself as the new president of Gelman Sciences, the only reaction I got was, "Oh, we know Gelman Sciences, you're the ugly polluter over on Wagner Road," and the conversation stopped right there. I mean, I was very, very hurt. I continue to be hurt today by that reaction, and part of what I strongly feel is we're going to rebuild our image as a responsible corporate citizen, so I can be proud to go out and represent a company that employs 540 people in Washtenaw County, Scio Township. Since that August 18th announcement, all of the affected parties have worked together on the technical details of this new proposal for remediation of the core area. As an assurance that Gelman Sciences will abide by the agreement, the MDEQ and the Attorney General's office have agreed to issue the permits and modify the consent judgment such that they are consistent with the proposal. The state is going to modify the agreement so that it goes beyond the requirement of the law to the 3 ppb level in the unlikely event that we have to go to surface water discharge. As a company, Gelman Sciences is committed to begin the core area remediation as quickly as we can possibly do that. As Sybil mentioned, we've already restarted the Evergreen system. That system is running and treating to a level of non-detect. One of the things that I was troubled by when I got into this last June, and I sat down, I remember sitting down with Roger for an evening in my office. I think we spent about 4 hours after hours, and him taking me through all of the history, all of the history of the remediation effort and the controversy. I was troubled by the fact that all of the most recent data that I saw had a date on it of about 1993, and nobody had really bothered to go out and sample and do all of the hydrogeological survey work that was necessary to really characterize the current nature of the contamination. So, as was mentioned earlier, we have just completed a very extensive sampling program so that we can completely recharacterize the nature of the contamination and better understand it. That's the first thing we've got to do, is get a current October 1995 understanding of what the problem is. And I think there are really 2 things that are very critically important that are first and foremost in my mind. Number 1 is that the 1,4-dioxane problem must be remediated. Number 2 is that through the remediation method, we cannot exacerbate the problem, and we cannot affect anyone that is currently unaffected by the problem. And when you see the fact that this is put into a first stage trial, when we're taking water out of the ground and we're putting it back down in, we want to fully understand the hydrogeological dynamics of what we're dealing with. We're taking water out, treating it, and putting it back in. And our agreement with the DNR is that in that process, and we think we can manage this to successful conclusion, but our agreement is we will not, by groundwater reinjection, substantially change the size and the shape of the plumes. And we're going to be very, very careful that in putting water back into the groundwater tables, we don't push this problem out and cause a new problem for anybody that doesn't have it today. Let's solve it in the right way. Let's solve it with groundwater reinjection, but let's be very careful and cautious in our approach and make sure that we don't make the problem worse or affect anybody that's not affected today. The core area remediation proposal, which we've submitted, and there's copies of it here available for people. There's something new in Gelman scientists sharing information. We actually brought copies of the proposal. We know you can go get them. You know, we don't want to put you through the pain of digging through file cabinets and going to the archives and everything. I mean, it's public record. We ought to just provide it. We've done that tonight. But the proposal we submitted is necessary. It's appropriate for the community and the residents. All of the parties involved have contributed equally to the plan, and we're proud to be here together to solicit public comment on the proposal to the MDEQ. The plan calls for Gelman Sciences to use groundwater reinjection in the core area as the primary method of remediation. Boy, was that a big hurdle for us to get over, by the way. Because as soon as I put that on the table back in June with Roger and Patty, I remember the first reaction was, oh, here you go again, you're switching horses, you were going to go to surface water discharge, now you're coming back to confuse us. We're doing groundwater reinjection because it's the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to discharge this stuff into the creek unless we absolutely have no other alternative. So we changed our approach because I felt it was the right thing to do, and I'm going to stand by that. The purged groundwater from the contaminated aquifer is going to be treated so that the presence of 1,4-dioxane is reduced to 77 parts per billion or less prior to reinjection. The proposal considers the use of Honey Creek for effluent discharge at levels of 3 parts per billion or less of 1,4-dioxane only in the event of failure of the groundwater reinjection method. And although we've got some technical agreement to reach with the DNR, the basic conceptual agreement is that failure means we cannot, by reinjection, control the size or shape of the plumes, or we're causing a problem for somebody that doesn't have it, as I talked about earlier. We feel fully confident that we can engineer a system that will properly remediate and have groundwater reinjection as the strategy by which we do that. I also want to make a point that the plan does not contemplate use of either the Scio Township or City of Ann Arbor sewer systems as a part of the remediation plan. Although the plan does not propose specific remediation for the western plume, the western plume is now being further characterized. We've sampled it, and as we better understand the western plume, an appropriate western plume remediation plan will be proposed at the earliest opportunity. We've agreed since the beginning, since the first meeting I had with Roger and Patty, that the western plume was on the table, but it was critically important that we begin remediation at the core area right now. Every day that we don't pump that water out and treat it, the problem gets worse, and I'm not going to tolerate that anymore. We want the core area remediation started as quickly as we can. There's a lot of issues with the western plume that need to be, first of all, we've got to characterize it and understand what it is. Secondly, I will tell you that there are issues of access and other things that we need to deal with. Working together, we're going to solve it. We're going to have a problem, and we're going to do it just in the same way we did on the core area, through a dialogue and through working together. And the western plume remediation plan is going to be developed with the same involvement and dialogue with which the core area remediation plan has been developed. Now, further, I've agreed to chair an ongoing working group, which is going to include township residents and township trustees. We've identified a group of about 6 people that will work on an ongoing basis and meet regularly to share information and data about progress as the remediation proceeds. The working group will also address other open issues and concerns about the remediation, offering the same ongoing opportunity for the contribution from all parties that we've had in the construction of the current proposal. We believe that our proposal is an example of business and the community sharing a common goal and working together to achieve responsible solutions. Gelman Sciences is committed to make every effort to succeed with the primary aspect of our proposal, groundwater reinjection. I also want to say that it's a more expensive solution for the company. It's going to cost us more to do groundwater reinjection than surface water discharge. I'm also going to tell you that although I agree with the DNR that once, or the DEQ, excuse me, I fell into that trap. Although I agree with the DEQ in principle that once you have the water out of the ground and treat it, it's just easier to keep it out of the ground and go with a surface water discharge. we are not going to pursue that route. That is not the route that we're going to pursue. We're going to make groundwater reinjection work, even though it may not be the easiest and most straightforward approach. But it is more expensive, and in order to do that, I personally committed, everybody knows we got some significant tax abatements from the state of Michigan and Scio Township. I've committed that we're going to set aside a certain amount of those tax incentives that we receive to fund the additional cleanup effort and ensure the success of groundwater reinjection as the strategy for the remediation. This is a great step forward for the future of Gelman Sciences, for Scio Township and the residents of Scio Township. Now, since I'm not a technical guy, but I'm learning pretty quick, to more thoroughly explain the proposal, I'd like to introduce Dr. Rick Harding. Rick is the president and a senior principal of Integrated Environmental. That firm has been retained by Gelman Sciences as our technical consultant in the remediation effort. Rick has helped me a lot in working closely with the residents and with the DEQ on making sure that this proposal was what we all wanted it to be, and I'd like to bring him up for about 30 minutes to explain the more technical aspects of the proposal. Rick?